Welcome to the GED Science 2023 course from ultimateged.com. This course is designed to help you easily pass the GED. Please watch the full video for best results and engage. Ask questions and answer questions. We're in this together. Let's dive right in. Lesson 1. The Scientific Method and Introduction to GED Graphs. Read the passage and graph and answer the questions below. A group of scientists wants to study the effect of temperature on the hatching of turtle eggs. They collect turtle eggs from a beach and incubate them at different temperatures to see if there is a correlation between temperature and the time it takes for the eggs to hatch. Their results are shown in the graph below. Question 1. Which step of the scientific method involves collecting turtle eggs from a beach and incubating them at different temperatures? A. Observation. B. Hypothesis. C. Experimentation. D. Conclusion. To answer questions like this, you need to be familiar with the scientific method. You can check out a full lesson on the scientific method on ultimateged.com. The scientific method is a systematic approach used by scientists to investigate natural phenomena and acquire new knowledge. The method involves making observations about a natural phenomenon, forming an hypothesis, that is, formulating a testable explanation or prediction based on the observations, designing and conducting experiments to test the hypothesis, analyzing and interpreting the data obtained from the experiments, and drawing a conclusion based on the results. Please note that there are different variations of these steps, but the idea is always the same. The most common one is the addition of communication as the last step. For this question, the correct answer is C. Experimentation. This step involves designing and conducting experiments to test the hypothesis formulated. In this case, the scientists are manipulating the temperature of the eggs to determine if it has an effect on the time it takes for them to hatch. Question 2. What is the independent variable in the study of the effect of temperature on the hatching of turtle eggs? A. Time to hatch. B. Temperature. C. Type of turtle. D. Location of beach. The correct answer is B. Temperature. To be good in this section of the GED, you must be able to identify the dependent and independent variables. Independent variables and dependent variables are two types of variables used in scientific investigations. The independent variable is the variable that is manipulated or changed by the experimenter to observe its effect on the dependent variable. On the other hand, the dependent variable is the variable that is being measured or observed and is affected by the independent variable. In other words, the independent variable is the cause or predictor of the outcome, while the dependent variable is the effect or the outcome being measured. For example, in the study of the effect of temperature on the hatching of turtle eggs, the independent variable is the temperature, which is being manipulated by the experimenter, while the dependent variable is the time it takes for the eggs to hatch, which is being observed and measured. The experimenter is interested in observing how changes in the independent variable, temperature, affect changes in the dependent variable, time to hatch. Question 3. What conclusion can be drawn from the graph? A. Higher temperatures result in faster hatching times. B. Lower temperatures result in faster hatching times. C. There is no correlation between temperature and hatching time. D. More data is needed to draw a conclusion. Before we answer this question, let's have a quick lesson on graphs. You can learn more from ultimateged.com. The title of the graph tells us what the graph is about. The x-axis, which is the horizontal axis, is usually the independent variable. So in question 2, we could have used the graph to answer it. The y-axis, which is the vertical axis, is usually the dependent variable. Graphs of this form are read from left to right. The slope of the line determines if the line is increasing or decreasing. For this graph, we can say that there's a decrease in the time to hatch when the temperature increased from 25 to 27 degrees Celsius, and time to hatch continues to decrease as you increase the temperature. This means our answer is A. Higher temperatures result in faster hatching times. Question 4. Based on the graph, which temperature resulted in the shortest time to hatch? A. 25 degrees Celsius. B. 29 degrees Celsius. C. 35 degrees Celsius. D. 31 degrees Celsius. The correct answer is C. 35 degrees. The work here is to locate the point with the shortest time. That point will be this. Then look for the temperature that corresponds to it. That temperature is 35 degrees. Please note that it's not always possible to get exact values on a graph. You need to make your best guess. For a point like this, if we want to find the number of days, the exact value has not been given. We can estimate it to be 53. It's above 50 and below 60. Lesson 2. Units, measurements, and conversions. Question 5. A car is traveling at a speed of 60 miles per hour. What is the speed of the car in kilometers per hour? A. 96.54 kilometers per hour. B. 100 kilometers per hour. C. 120 kilometers per hour. D. 160.93 kilometers per hour. To pass the GED Science, it's important you know your conversions. To convert miles per hour to kilometers per hour, we can use the conversion factor 1 mile equals 1.609 kilometers. This conversion factor will be given to you on the GED. Therefore, to convert 60 miles per hour to kilometers per hour, we can just multiply 60 by 1.609. This gives us a speed of approximately 96.54 kilometers per hour. So the correct answer is A. The table below shows the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit from Monday to Sunday of a small town on the East Coast. Use the table to answer the following question. Question 6. What was the temperature in degrees Celsius for the highest temperature of the week? A. 36.70. B. 25.56. C. 29.25. D. 32.45. From the table, the highest temperature of the week was 78 degrees Fahrenheit. This is in degrees Fahrenheit. However, we are supposed to calculate it in degrees Celsius. The formula is stated above as temperature in degrees Celsius equals temperature in degrees Fahrenheit minus 32 times 5/9. Temperature in degrees Celsius equals 78 minus 32 times 5/9. 78 minus 32 is 46, so we have 46 times 5/9. We can work this out on the calculator to get 25.56. The answer is therefore option B, 25.56 degrees Celsius. Lesson 3. Properties of life and cellular biology. Question 7. Which of the following is not one of the characteristics of living organisms? A. Homeostasis. B. Metabolism. C. Reproduction. D. Evolution. The correct answer is evolution. The 7 characteristics are organization, energy utilization, homeostasis, growth and development, reproduction, adaptation, and response to stimuli. Check out ultimateged.com for more on this. Question 8. Which of the following best describes the relationship between the characteristics of living organisms and the properties of life? A. The 7 characteristics are distinct from the properties of life. B. The 7 characteristics are examples of the properties of life. C. The 7 characteristics are unrelated to the properties of life. D. The properties of life are only relevant to non-living matter. The correct answer is B. The 7 characteristics are examples of the properties of life. These properties of life and the characteristics of living organisms are often confused and mostly interchanged. There is a difference. The properties of life is what all living organisms have. The characteristics of living organism is how an individual living organism exhibit that property. You can basically call it examples. Let's take the property of life, that is metabolism. Both fish and birds have metabolism as a property of life, which refers to the chemical processes that occur within their bodies to convert nutrients into energy and carry out life-sustaining functions. However, fish and birds have different metabolic rates and processes due to their distinct lifestyles and habitats. Fish are cold-blooded, which means they cannot regulate their body temperature internally and instead rely on the temperature of their environment to regulate their metabolism. As a result, their metabolism slows down in colder temperatures and speeds up in warmer temperatures. In contrast, birds are warm-blooded, which means they have the ability to regulate their body temperature internally through metabolism. Birds have a high metabolic rate to generate the heat required to maintain their body temperature, which is typically higher than that of fish. In summary, both fish and birds have metabolism as a property of life, but their metabolic rates and processes differ based on their distinct lifestyles and habitats, meaning their metabolism characteristics are different. Question 9. What is the name of the organelle labeled X in the diagram? A. Nucleus. B. Lysosome. C. Mitochondrion. D. Endoplasmic reticulum. The answer is A. Nucleus. You need a working knowledge of plant and animal cells. You should be able to identify and label the major organelles. This is an animal cell and here are the organelles. Pause the video and go through it. Question 10. What is the function of the cell membrane? A. To store genetic information. B. To support the cell structure. C. To protect the cell from pathogens. D. To control the movement of substances into and out of the cell. The correct answer is D. To control the movement of substances into and out of the cell. For the GED, you are expected to know the functions of the organelles. Please don't spend too much time memorizing them. You just need a good idea of what they are. The cell membrane is a thin, flexible barrier that surrounds the cell. Its main function is to control the movement of substances into and out of the cell, while also providing protection and support for the cell. Question 11. Which of the following cell types is responsible for producing antibodies to fight infections? A. Red blood cells. B. White blood cells. C. Muscle cells. D. Nerve cells. The correct answer is B. White blood cells. White blood cells, also known as leukocytes, are responsible for producing antibodies to fight infections. Antibodies are proteins that recognize and bind to foreign substances, such as viruses or bacteria, and mark them for destruction by other cells of the immune system. Red blood cells, A, do not have a nucleus and are not involved in immune responses. They are responsible for carrying oxygen from the lungs to the body's tissues. Muscle cells, C, are specialized cells that are involved in movement and do not have a role in producing antibodies. Nerve cells, D, are specialized cells that are involved in transmitting signals throughout the body and do not have a role in producing antibodies. Lesson 4. Genetics and Heredity. Read the passage and answer the question below. Traits are inherited characteristics that are passed down from parents to offspring through genetic material. Some traits are controlled by a single gene, while others are influenced by multiple genes and environmental factors. One example of a single gene trait is the ability to roll your tongue, which is determined by a single gene with two possible versions or alleles. If an individual inherits at least one copy of the dominant allele for tongue rolling, they will be able to roll their tongue. However, if they inherit 2 copies of the recessive allele, they will not be able to roll their tongue. Another example of a trait influenced by multiple genes and environmental factors is height. While genes play a role in determining an individual's height, factors such as nutrition and physical activity can also have an impact. Question 12. What is an example of a single gene trait? A. Eye color. B. Height. C. Skin tone. D. Tongue rolling ability. The correct answer is D. Tongue rolling ability. The passage provides tongue rolling ability as an example of a single gene trait that is determined by a single gene with 2 possible versions, or alleles. Question 13. If one parent is heterozygous for tongue rolling ability and the other parent is homozygous recessive for this trait, what is the probability that their offspring will be able to roll their tongue? A. 0%. B. 25%. C. 50%. D. 75%. The correct answer is C. 50%. Since genetics is a very important topic on the GED science, let's spend some time learning how we got the 50%. When we talk about genetics, we use the terms heterozygous, homozygous dominant, and homozygous recessive to describe the different possible genotypes for this trait. Heterozygous refers to having 2 different alleles for a particular gene. In the case of tongue rolling ability, the dominant allele determines the ability to roll the tongue, while the recessive allele results in the inability to roll the tongue. Therefore, an individual who is heterozygous for tongue rolling ability would have the genotype, indicating that they have 1 copy of the dominant allele and 1 copy of the recessive allele. Homozygous dominant refers to having 2 identical copies of the dominant allele. In the case of tongue rolling ability, an individual who is homozygous dominant would have the genotype, indicating that they have 2 copies of the dominant allele and are able to roll their tongue. Homozygous recessive refers to having 2 identical copies of the recessive allele. In the case of tongue rolling ability, an individual who is homozygous recessive would have the genotype, indicating that they have 2 copies of the recessive allele and are unable to roll their tongue. Now, let's use this information to answer the question. If one parent is heterozygous for tongue rolling ability, let's say the father, and the other parent is homozygous recessive, let's say the mother, we can use a Punnett square to determine the possible genotypes and phenotypes of their offspring. Here is an example Punnett square for this cross. Let's put the father's genotype here. Let's put the mother's genotype here. You can interchange them. It won't make a difference. The first section will be the dominant R and recessive R. We got that because of this R here and this R here. We do that for the next section. This and this will give us a dominant R and a recessive R. We go to the third section. We have 2 recessive R. This is because of this R and this R. Then we fill up the last section. Same idea. We have 2 recessive R. If the offspring is heterozygous or homozygous dominant, they will be able to roll their tongue. Here we have 2 possibilities of heterozygous. This is out of 4 total possibilities. This is 2 over 4, which can be reduced to 1 over 2. This is the same as 50%. Lesson 5. Evolution and Natural Selection. Read the passage and answer the question below. Birds are a diverse group of animals that have evolved a wide range of adaptations in response to their environment. One example of natural selection in birds is the evolution of beak size and shape. In the Galapagos Islands, finches with different beak sizes and shapes have adapted to different food sources. For example, finches with longer, narrower beaks are better adapted to feeding on insects, while finches with shorter, broader beaks are better adapted to cracking seeds. During times of drought, when food sources become scarce, finches with beaks better suited to available food sources are more likely to survive and reproduce, passing on their genes to the next generation. Over time, This process can lead to the evolution of new species with distinct beak sizes and shapes. Question 14. What is natural selection and how does it contribute to evolution? A. Natural selection is the process by which individuals with certain traits are more likely to survive and reproduce than individuals without those traits. B. Natural selection is the process by which individuals pass on their genetic material to the next generation. C. Natural selection is the process by which individuals adapt to their environment. D. Natural selection is the process by which individuals change over time in response to changes in their environment. The correct answer is A. Natural selection is the process by which individuals with certain traits are more likely to survive and reproduce than individuals without those traits. The passage defines natural selection as the process by which individuals with certain advantageous traits are more likely to survive and reproduce, passing on their genes to the next generation. Over time, this process can lead to the evolution of new species with distinct characteristics. Question 15. What is an example of natural selection in birds? A. The evolution of flight feathers. B. The development of colorful plumage. C. The evolution of beak size and shape. D. The migration patterns of birds. The correct answer is C. The evolution of beak size and shape. The passage describes the evolution of beak size and shape in finches as an example of an adaptation in birds that has occurred through natural selection. Question 16. How do finches with beaks better suited to available food sources during a drought contribute to evolutionary change? A. They are more likely to develop longer lifespans. B. They are more likely to mate with birds with similar beak sizes and shapes. C. They are more likely to survive and reproduce, passing on their genes to the next generation. D. They are more likely to develop new adaptations that make them better suited to their environment. The answer is C. They are more likely to survive and reproduce, passing on their genes to the next generation. During times of drought, when food sources become scarce, finches with beaks better suited to available food sources are more likely to survive and reproduce. This is because they are better able to obtain food, which gives them a competitive advantage over finches with less suitable beaks. As a result, the genes that determine beak size and shape are more likely to be passed on to the next generation, and the frequency of these genes in the population will increase over time. This process is called natural selection and can lead to the evolution of new species with distinct beak sizes and shapes that are better adapted to their environment. We will end this video here. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Check out the full course at ultimateged.com.